What's up, Tater Gang? Thank you to everyone who's been tuning in to our last two episodes of our podcast, whether it's Spotify or YouTube. The engagement has been great. We love hearing that you guys are enjoying the stories that we're talking about. Episode 3, Tater Kong episode, is our favorite episode so far. We had some technical difficulties with the video portion of it for YouTube, but we're going to give you guys some exclusive content that we haven't put out on Instagram, Twitter, anything before about the Tater Kong and some of the stuff we talk about. If you guys like what we're doing, feel free to share, subscribe, send it to someone who wants to hear the story or should hear the story, and let us know what you guys want us to talk about next. We're excited to keep bringing more content for you guys. Enjoy.
I'm Sky Elazar, and I'm Tater.
I am Matt Donlin. I am Tater.
I'm Nick Raposo, and I am Tater.
Welcome back, everyone, to the We Are Tater podcast. I'm here alongside my brother, Freddie. This is your host, Jeremiah, and today we're going to talk about the Tater Kong. I'm super juiced up about this episode. It's going to be a fun one. So I'm going to ask Freddie quickly why we started Tater Kong. Just go right into it. Let's go.
So this one means a lot to me, and I'm glad this is episode 3. Again, if before I jump into it, honestly, if you guys love the stuff that we do, share it to your friends, share it to people that need to hear the story, because this one is going to be legendary. So 2015, right? We talked a little bit about that in episode 1, but I was working at a company called Foley. I was a marketing analyst there, doing a lot of
The dog days.
Yeah, those days were terrible. I love the people I worked with, though. They still support. They love me. It's just the job was not it. And me being naive, I told everybody what I was doing. I'm like, yeah, I'm starting this company with my family. If I could sell, so and so many bats, I can get out of this place. I used to find any excuse to play ping pong with anybody who would be down to play, and just so I wouldn't have to work there. And as the company started to grow, there was a couple people that were a little, haters, and obviously, we've had a lot of haters throughout the years.
Yeah.
And this was like a building block of I'm sitting next to someone and they just hate on me and they snitch on me or whatever. And it was like a blessing because them not wanting me to succeed made it so easy for us to, water off a duck's back. It doesn't matter, if now if a competitor or anything that happens, people bite our stuff, I just know we're going to get better. And you know what? Competition is healthy. And people who hate on your stuff is just because they're jealous. So long story short, so I would sit in the office and I was sitting next to a gentleman who was crazy guy, drawing. His work was crazy. I was never artistic. So this was the first artist we ever collabed with. And I said, hey man, I'll pay you to do a design for me. We have this logo. It's a TB with a home plate around it. We're gonna drop it here. Check it out. And I actually asked one of the marketing girls that worked there. Her name was Abby. If she could make it for us. It was a TB. You'll see it on the screen. It'll pop up.
Cursive script, home plate, super thin.
And people used to hate on that design. They used to call it J3 instead of TB because it just whatever. But, people knew it was just, some people just wanted to be hardos about it. And the guy that sat next to me was drawing a bunch of stuff for different people at the office. And I said, you know what I would love? I would love for you to make a gorilla holding a big banana, and the home plate would be the TB logo. And he took a week or so, a couple days. I don't even remember the timeline, but he made that, and I had it on my wall. And that was the first semblance of the Tater Kong. It had a little bit of an attitude. I gave him a little direction. I wanted some attitude,
some swag,
some crazy swag. I don't care what you say, I'm going to beat you, or that confidence level. We're going to play. You're going to throw this pitch. I'm going to hit a bomb off you. And it was kind of like the underlying feeling I was having at the office when, people would be like, "Oh, where's Freddie?" My manager would come in and be like, "Oh, where's Freddie?" And I ask my coworkers, and instead of a couple of them like having my back, I mean, there was a couple that had my back. Someone would say, "Oh, he's just wasting his time selling bats during his lunch."
So let's talk about this, right? So Freddie was working his 9 to 5 like everyone else, fresh out of college. You were 23 at the time. And at his lunch break, that was his opportunity to sell bats, because after that we would go home and we'd produce. We'd be making bats. So in the garage, in the lab. So you used to go straight from lunch. I'm sure those first 3 hours of work would go by super slow because you were just ready to set up and get to this meeting. So talk about what that was like, the anticipation of the meeting, and then getting back, hoping you weren't going to get in trouble.
Literally, I would try to plan out my day where I would say, okay, if I can get all my stuff done today, even if I came back a little late, my boy Jason, who ended up becoming our first sales rep, who used to help me out all the time, would cover my back. So my boss literally only came on like a single day of the week, was like Fridays or Wednesdays. I can't remember, but he drove all the way from Boston. And he was the man. Like I have nothing bad to say. He really hooked it up. But I now, where I'm at now, I understand why he was on me, because obviously it was a real job. But there was other people who would, other managers in different departments who would like try to point out like, this guy is not, he shows up late, or he's leaving, or he's taking an hour lunch, or taking an hour and 20.
Not focused on what he's got to do.
Yeah, and you know what it was is that I was finishing my work in like 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, oh, I'm good for the day. I can focus on making the website, stuff like that. And I would research facilities, and we're talking nobody knew who I was, what Tater was. I have been out of the game for like 5 or 6 years. So there would be times where I would leave. I'd run to my, not every time was to sell bats. Like there was times where I would actually have to drive somewhere to get bats engraved with people's names on them. And I would have to coordinate times where I could drop off the bats or sit there and wait to make sure they do it right. Because we've had issues where the person who was engraving the bats, because we didn't even have the equipment yet, would spell the person's name wrong, and then I would have to eat it. So I'd be the bad guy when I didn't mess up the order was in somebody else's hands. But I would go to these facilities, and there was only, there was a couple in Hartford area, we're the capital of Connecticut, and not all of them, but there was a handful of them that would just be like, oh, why buy your stuff? Like, oh, I don't, thanks for coming, but we don't need you here. And it was just kind of like an underlying sense of like, you're not going to make it. And there was times where people would be like, hey, you're pretty smart. You want to work for me? Like, how much do I pay you to work at Tater? And I'd be like, no, bro, this is my company. And not only did I have to battle those issues where people didn't believe in the branding, which now they're, some of those facilities are dying to work with us, right?
Yep.
They want us to do everything for them, and they want us to rebrand their whole facility, which is crazy. And I don't even remember if it's the same people or if it went through new management or whatever, but it's just kind of ironic. And the thing of the matter was, not only was I battling prospective clients not believing in the brand, but I was also having coworkers who thought that I was killing it or making money, and they were just trying to make it harder for me on my regular job.
Yeah, that's that hustler's mentality, man. You're just trying to hustle, and that's something that we haven't stopped with since we started. And we're 7 years into this, and I feel like every day we still have that same mentality that when we started, where we're gonna hustle and get this done. We're gonna do anything we can to be the best company out there.
Yeah, and that's really what the Tater Kong really embodies today. So it's and this is why a lot of players and a lot of people relate to it, because it's like, not only do we have to prove ourselves day in and day out, not only do we have to innovate, but even throughout that, even though we put up the number, like a player, even though he puts up the numbers, even though they show out, they're constantly in people's faces doing the right thing, people still want to doubt, right? And it's okay. But it's the chip on our shoulder. That's why the Kong has his hat turned backwards. He has that little smirk. He has the sunglasses on. He's coming to play. He's coming to show out. He doesn't care what you got to say. We're going to go in and do the job. And we know we're going to do it right, and we're going to do it well. And nobody can take that away. So the first Tater Kong is not what it is today.
Right. So we're going to talk about next how that first Tater Kong evolved into this one and what's to come. So that first Tater Kong was obviously instrumental to our growth. But then about 2 years after that, we met a good friend who's close to us now, who still works with us. His name is Chuck. And Chuck is a beast. Graphic design, that's the GOAT. And Chuck was referred to us by our great friend JC, who was working at Tater every day with us, grinding it out. So we said to Chuck, you're a graphic designer. We have this. Let's make this one-dimensional and swaggy to fit the tone of what Tater is and what it will be for years to come. So talk about that conversation you have with Chuck when you wanted him to create the new Tater Kong.
Chuck Nasty. I love that guy, man. I love you, Chuck, and JC. JC, so this is how it kind of went down. So bootstrapping the company. We didn't have a lot of money. And it was constant people bombarding me with, hey, I want to do this. Hey, sponsor my team. Hey, sponsor me. I'm a pro player, even though they may not have been a pro player. Sponsor my baseball team. You should donate, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, while those are great things to do, this is 2017. We're still operating out of a garage. And people are like, no capital. Like, I'm still working at Foley. Yeah. Or I think I actually was in the process of transitioning to my next job. And because it was just getting so tense there, where there was just, I was just under a microscope everywhere I went.
Yeah.
So JC, who, knew the grind, he actually was my right-hand man for a long time. And I know if I call him today, he'll be right there with us. He was like, hey, my boy Chuck, or I call him Chuck Nasty, wants to do some graphic design work. And I was already like, hey, JC, I've gone through like 5 different graphic designers. Nobody gets it. They don't play baseball. They don't understand like the environment, the vibe.
Because everyone knows you're a baseball player. You're in baseball. Some things just don't hit. So it's like the vision for baseball type, logos or anything, typography, it just has to flow with what baseball is. It can't be eyewash. For people who don't know what eyewash is, look it up. And then Chuck just knew what he was doing because he was a baseball guy, and he was still playing at the time.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, it was like, hey, prove yourself to me type of conversation. And I wish I wish you called him today to ask him exactly what I said, because
I know, right?
I'm going to paraphrase it, but I said something to the effect of, because, I was really tired of, it was always constant, like people like Tater 2 years in, a little bit success. People were saying, like, I've had multiple instances where people were saying, oh, I own Tater, but like I've never even met the person before, or people were trying to make copies of the bats, or people were trying to say that they knew me very well, or whatever, and I didn't even know who they were, and they never even bought product from us before, saying that they owned a company or whatever, and or that they did stuff for us, or they made our website. Just people just trying to bite, right? And I said, Chuck, I need you to prove it to me that you can do the graphic. I don't doubt you, but can you take this gorilla and make it into an actual logo that we can use? And then from there, we'll contract you to do stuff. Because I had multiple graphic designers where I would pay them and then we would get some BS.
Some eyewash.
It's like, well, I just grinded to sell, bats for 2 or 3 weeks, and it all went down the drain because the design that we needed or whatever we needed, wasn't it. And Chuck came back, and we had some like ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back, and he had like, I don't know, like 15 different logos with the gorilla. We even did a lion. We've done a couple different things where it was just like, and I was like, Chuck, I want something that says, I'm going to body you. Like, we're going to play and you're not going to win. Like, I'm sorry, but we're too good for you.
Yeah, because literally in the baseball industry, you will see other brands that they don't have a secondary or a third logo or even a mascot. So this was another differentiator for us to not only give something for that encompasses the brand, but gives something for people to resonate with, right? Versus just a normal corporate logo.
Right. And it's like, that's really what we wanted. We had the Tater logo. At this time, we transitioned from the TB to the Tater with the oval, the one on his hat, and the one on Maya's head and on the Tater Kong's head. But it was something that we needed to hit all aspects. We need to be corporate. We also need to be edgy. A lot of the companies out there are very, very corporate, and nobody's edgy. Everybody's afraid to be edgy. So us being a small, nimble company, we can kind of do what we want.
Innovate.
Be
Different.
Don't worry about what people have to think or say, because at the end of the day, we're doing what we like to do. So if people like it, that's great. If people don't like it, that's fine too, because this is our project. This is our company. We can end up, if we wanted to make a camouflage whatever, we could do it.
Yeah.
So the Tater Kong really is something that people can like an identity for the company that they can resonate with. And what's ironic is a lot of companies have tried to now incorporate a gorilla with a hat on with some sunglasses, but it's just not it. And they had to stop doing it.
I think something that we have to touch on now is not only what the Kong means to us, but what it means to baseball, because what everyone is noticing now, and at least we notice it because we're in the game every day, is that baseball culture is changing. And similar to the Kong, it represents culture, right?
Yeah, new school, man. Baseball has been such a legacy sport. America's pastime.
Right.
Love the game, but it's gotten to a point where no one was really pushing the envelope.
Yeah, like if someone bat flips, people are getting mad, but we all know that type of stuff is here to stay.
Yeah, look at all the other sports. Everybody's edgy, doing cool stuff, celebrations, doing flips, whatever it may be, cool cleats.
Yep.
You still have it. So the Tater Kong really embodies that movement. Like, that's the new identity of baseball, the new culture, the culture Kong, we want to call it.
Right.
And that's owned by Tater. So anything that we do that's edgy has the Kong on it, right? And anything that's very corporate, very, minimalist is going to be the TB or the Tater logo. And recently we came out with the Tater Kong alternate bat. And that was a hit because no one has ever seen something where it has, there's literally 5 colors on this bat, splattered all over the place in a crazy design, and there's a huge Tater Kong on it. But if you rotate the bat, it looks like a traditional bat.
Yep.
What do you say? What is your take on the Tater Kong and culture and baseball and how we're going to change the game?
So the Kong, like I was saying before, goes right along with the movement. But when it's so universal that you can use it with anything, and the new players that are coming up, whether it's a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or a guy who's in single A who's starting up, it gives them that thing that, these guys are trendy and edgy. I can feel confident that doing the same thing when I play. That's what I see it like.
Something to prove.
And then on top of that, something that we've been working on for the last year and a half, you guys probably seen on our Instagram, is incorporating the Kong with new styles, right? So we have the shades. We give the shades a perspective of, ballparks around the world that are synonymous with, culture. So talk about that.
So one cool idea that we, because baseball culture is so it's changing so quickly, and we have a big part of it, whether we believe it or not. I know in my heart that we are the ones that are innovating the industry. So Mark Martinez, he helps us all the time. We met him this time about last year, right? Maybe
2 years
ago. He's been helping out at the shop. He's become like a brother to me. And he was like, yo, what would be sick? In the shades of the gorilla is the layout or parts of the city of where baseball stadiums are. Yankee Stadium, Citi Field,
PNC Park.
PNC.
You got the Roberto Clemente Bridge. You got those those icons or those specific landmarks in those respective cities that are associated with the teams, are in,
a fan's identity,
Yeah.
even a player's identity, because, I'm a big fan of the Pirates, and whenever I see, what I care most about that stadium is the Clemente on the bridge.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I want to go see, and that's honestly one of the only things I want to go see when I go down there, just because of the feeling that I get when I'm there. And it's crazy because even overseas, the Tater Kong is making an influence on baseball.
Yeah.
In the Asian markets.
Yeah, you got guys wearing the Tater Kong underneath their hat, whether it's in Japan or in Taiwan. You got guys in the big leagues. You know, everyone's wearing headbands underneath their hat. We came out with the Tater Kong headband. Guys are wearing it on field in the stadium. They're sliding, they're hitting double. The helmet's falling off. What do you see? You see the Tater Kong.
Yeah, and it's one thing that I'm glad you bring it up, because not only did we do a Tater Kong with the shades, with all the different cities and stuff, but we also did it to represent people's countries.
Yeah.
Because a lot of folks don't get an opportunity to express themselves, because obviously baseball is very clean cut, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with it, but it's very hard to identify yourself. So what we ended up doing was we put like the Venezuelan flag, the Dominican flag, Puerto Rican flag, American flag, and the Mexican flag, and a couple other countries in the Tater Kong.
Silhouette, yeah.
In the silhouette. So not only are people resonating with, hey, I got something to prove, I'm going to play in the big leagues for more than this year. I'm going to, because it's one thing to make it, is the other thing to stay. So guys that want to show that they have something to prove, that they're willing to put into work, that they can do it, they can grind it out, and they have the capability. They're the first ones that that's like what I see is like the guys take the jump and wear the Tater Kong. And there's Tater guys that don't necessarily use a Tater Kong, but those are the guys that necessarily are more reserved. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and we even have guys who have the tat. Like, they tattooed Tater Kong on their arm.
Oh, yeah, my
Shout
boy.
out Chris. Shout out Chris, because we met Chris in 2020. You know, great guy, one of my best friends now because of baseball. If it wasn't for Tater or baseball, I would have never met him. But he instantly resonated with the Kong. Like, this is a perfect example. Chris is playing pro ball. He goes, yo, I'm going to get the Kong tatted on my arm. We're like, yo, relax.
I don't
like,
even have
hold
it.
on. We don't even have it on our body. Like, I don't have any tattoos. You're going to get it. We thought he was joking. Sure enough, what was it, like 3 or 4 months later?
I literally said, if you do it, I'll pay for it, because I didn't even believe he was going to do it.
Yeah, there's no thought in our head that he was going to do it. So what was it 3-4 months later? I'm trying to remember. It was around the summertime.
Like 3 months later, he said, hey, I got a tattoo artist who's going to come down to the shop, and we're going to do it right in the factory.
Yeah.
So we waited, and ended up like the tattoo artist ended up bailing.
Yep.
But then literally the next day, he found some other tattoo artist to do it, and they banged it out in a day.
And he's got it big right on his tricep, and he's the first one with it, but there's going to be more guys for sure.
We've literally have like 5 guys that said they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Out of their own free, like once we brought up, they're like, yo, you know what's funny? I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, we got guys with the Puerto Rican Kong that they're going to put, the Kong with the Puerto Rico flag inside of it on their leg. They got guys who are ready to do anything. Like, they love it.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm glad you say that is multiple people, because one thing that I feel very strongly about is that it's one thing when you go somewhere or you start something new and you do it by yourself, and you can get somewhere very quickly, but you won't go very far, right?
Yeah.
You try, like if I started Tater and I didn't have all this help, and I didn't have you or mom or pop, JC, Chuck, anybody, Chris, or any of the players or the people who used to come to the house to buy the bats, like literally knock on our front door, come to the basement, and then spread the word. If it wasn't for those folks, we wouldn't have gone so far. So the other, and I almost forgot about this.
Yeah, the what gorillas do is this what you're going to talk about?
They're like the family, right?
Yeah.
So when you see a gorilla, they're always in packs, right? And this was one of the big principles of why I wanted a gorilla to embody the company, is that not only are they strong, not only can they fight on their own, but they work as a family and protect each other. And that's when it comes down to community. I'm so big on community now, because I look at it, all the people that I really, really care about, everybody that I talk to on a daily basis, all the people that have our backs are because they're part of our Tater family.
Yep. Not
necessarily saying like, people from before Tater I don't care about. It's more like there's a different feeling of being in this community that we have created, because it's like I know I can call a person and someone in my like from Tater, and they'll be at our front door before maybe somebody I grew up with or even family.
Ready to go, yeah.
They're ready to go because it's just because it's that underlying sense of what the Tater Kong really stands for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we know that so many people have helped us along the way, and it's just going to keep happening that way, right? This is the Tater community, the Tater family. What we say all the time, we are Tater, the Tater fam. It's everyone who is with us now and everyone who's going to help us propel and keep going forward. So the Kong and Gorillas in general is that whole pack idea. Without it, it's the core of what Tater is.
Yeah, and I really do. Like, I was actually talking to an agent today, and he goes, how do you pick the players that you give a contract to, or how do you pick the guys that you want to support or
Market?
And I said, literally, you can walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of free stuff, and they'll take it, right? But it takes a special type of person, and this is not only for pro players, but high school players, college guys, parents, so on and so forth. It takes a very special type of person to support because they actually want to support you.
And they believe in it.
And guys that show loyalty to us, because obviously, that's a big part of it. When when somebody has your back and you have their back, it's just a different type of relationship than just, hey, here's a contract, sign this, you're here with us for a year. Because a lot of these guys that we have relationships with, whether they continue to play baseball, whether they're done with baseball, whether they decide to do a career change, we still talk to them all the time.
We're with them, yeah. We're helping them. They're calling us to help make their life decisions. It's that whole camaraderie, that brotherhood. And that's why it's so different, the relationship that we have with everyone, not only pro players, like you just said. Because these guys, we trust them that they're going to showcase our stuff at the highest level. Or even we have, the guys who are showcasing our stuff in college or high school. It's that same thing. And that there's a trust that no matter what happens, these guys will be honest with us and we're honest with them. And there's that undoubted trust that is automatically associated with it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who've become family just because of the time spent together.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like the Band of Brothers, where you're like fighting a war, or you're trying to show out, because if we wanted to just mass produce a product and just try to make money, and we can flood the market, we can make batch cheaper and use cheaper wood and just flood the market. But that's not what we want to do. It's the same investment the players making in us, we're making in them. High school, college, even youth, MLB, minor league, independent, whatever the case may be, is that we truly put our hearts and our sweat and tears into these bats, because we want our family members, our brothers, our sisters, whatever you want to call it, to succeed, because we actually do care about their careers.
Yeah. I think this is a good spot to leave it at. I mean, we covered a lot of information in this episode. I enjoyed talking about the Kong with everyone, and it's a question that we get all the time, like I said at the beginning of the episode. So for those who know the story, you know it a little more now. For those who have always wondered what the Kong really embodies, share it with someone who might ask you in the future, because the Kong is here to stay.